In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus' intense anguish and surrender to the Father's will to the point of what? Hematohidrosis. That's what they call when somebody is sweating blood. Okay? Is seen as the initial step in confronting the case of what? Adam's sin. That is the initial step. Okay? Adam's disobedience in the garden brought forth a curse on the ground, leading to toil and sweat for sustenance. Christ's what? Agony and bloody sweat in the Garden of Gethsemane are interpreted as the beginning of redeeming humanity from the curse of a fallen will and the futility of human effort apart from God. So there is something that happened. The will of man also fall. That is the willpower of man. Okay? Because the enemy was able to deceive man so that as man sinned, what happened was that then man lost his willpower. So that the enemy is always able to influence man for man to side with him because his willpower has been taken. He lost that willpower. But Christ, on that day, when he sweated blood, if you listen, this is what he said, because it was a contention for willpower. Either he will yield to the suffering that is going to happen to him, which he already started experiencing it. That is why he sweated blood. Either he was going to yield to it so that he would do just as the first Adam did. Because mind you, the scripture says that Jesus is the second Adam. Okay? So either he was going to act as the first Adam who has lost his willpower, so that his willpower, all that he does is that he always yields to the influence of the enemy. So Jesus had a choice, either to follow in the steps of the first Adam or to follow in the steps of God's will. Okay? But he chose to follow in the steps of God's will. That's what Jesus did. And by choosing to follow in the steps of will, that is why Jesus said this. He says, not my will. So not the will of the flesh, but he said what? Your will be done. That is, God's will should be done. So if by that act alone, Jesus gained the willpower for